Okay, before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that you can type questions into the Q&A box in the right-hand column of your screen. So please feel free to input any questions throughout the webinar. We will respond to those questions during a Q&A session at the end of the presentation today, and all attendees will receive a recording link to the webinar. So welcome, and thank you for attending this session. My name is Rob Cataldo. I am the head of the enterprise business in North America, and over the next 20 minutes or so, we'll talk about the best way for enterprise organizations to successfully tackle the growing challenge of advanced cyber attacks. Based on the increasing complexity of threats in today's landscape, it's pretty clear that there is no way to be entirely risk-free. Security breaches are unfortunately no longer a matter of if, but when, and it's really because data is so precious and valuable nowadays. So let's take a look at the logos here on the slide. All of these companies have suffered some form of a cyber attack, and although these are some very well-known companies, it's important to note that anyone can become a victim. It doesn't matter if you're handling security for a small startup or a mature international corporation like FedEx, Maersk, or others. If your data is valuable to anyone else in the world, you can indeed be targeted. So let's take a look at the possible consequences of these attacks. Every advanced attack comes with a price, whether that's a decline in market value, reputation loss, or business process disruption, with skyrocketing costs of $1.2 million on average, which is a stat provided in response to one of our global B2B surveys that was conducted in 2017. Breaches are becoming much more difficult to survive. And here are some real life examples of these consequences. So for a fall in market value, Yahoo, where more than 1 billion accounts had been compromised, was eventually forced to cut the price of its $4.8 billion sale to Verizon by $350 million. Under reputation loss, you remember when Uber paid hackers $100,000 to delete data and keep the breach quiet? Its chief security officer was fired, and the company had to admit its response failure. And then finally, for business disruption, let's take a quick look at the Renault case. In the wake of the infamous WannaCry ransomware attack, Renault, the famous French car manufacturer, had to shut down or reduce production on 5 car factories. That's a good example where a cyber threat caused tangible consequences that could rival damages caused by a natural disaster or even a physical assault. And we shouldn't forget about the cost of remediation. One of the companies we saw in the previous slides, Maersk, after the ex-Petya attack, they had to reinstall 45,000 workstations. Can you even attempt to quantify the cost of that? That's days and weeks of operational disruption and material reputation damage. But the burning question is, why is mitigating these attacks so difficult? Advanced attacks often go under the radar and cause a huge damage to organizations. But why is that? Here are the main challenges and gaps that make businesses vulnerable to these kinds of threats. So first, the digital transformation. A lot of organizations sending infrastructure to the cloud. It adds more complexity to the already complex infrastructure, undermining visibility. And it's obvious that if you don't have visibility, you're not in full control of your environment. And number two, your security teams every day are covered, blanketed by millions of notifications that they need to analyze. And under those conditions, when they're inundated with alerts, the eyes on glass stigma, it's very challenging to catch all of the anomalies, to connect the dots, and then to highlight the first symptoms of a possible attack. Number three, there's not enough expertise available on the market. We hear about it all the time. There's a shortage of talent across the marketplace, and true experts are difficult to find and expensive to hire. Number four, companies lack insight into the threat landscape, especially about threats that specifically target their organizations or ones similar to theirs, so maybe in the same industry. And that lack of insight into relevant threat data prevents them from being properly prepared and from identifying attacks before they hit the corporate environment. All this considered, there's an overall material challenge for organizations to establish a structured incident investigation and response process that minimizes the impact of a targeted attack. We find that businesses often focus on prevention, or a shoot without questions approach, if you will, that is certainly helpful with more of the traditional threats that we see. However, when it comes to the less than 10% of all threats we see, the advanced variety, there are some limitations. Not all these threats can be blocked by preventive security solutions. Non-malware attacks, social engineering, and attacks through the supply chain won't necessarily be detected and blocked by endpoint protection or firewall solutions. Cleanup, shutdown, or reinstallation of infected systems doesn't show or eliminate the root cause of a problem, meaning that the system can be compromised this way again. And manual emergency restoration isn't always complete and efficient. Sometimes that brings a lot of wasted time, resources, and even human mistakes. So without dedicated experts, IT security teams find themselves covering all security tasks at once and don't always have the resources and expertise for threat and incident response. In other words, it's just like routine police work. Patrol officers are the ones who catch crooks and small criminals on the streets. But to take down a gang of bank robbers or a drug cartel, something more sophisticated, you need more than that. You need a detective. So what are the benefits of this investigate and detect approach? The investigate and detect approach brings the following benefits. Threat hunting allows teams to search proactively in order to detect and isolate advanced threats that evade other security solutions. Anomaly detection and analysis help to automatically analyze and to correlate suspicious network activity without getting distracted by millions of notifications, as I mentioned, eyes on glass. Incident response automation allows for surgical remote cleaning of infected systems to avoid costly and disruptive manual reinstallation of workstations, you know, as we mentioned and referred to in the Maersk case and others. And then specialized teams, either internal or outsourced, can focus on threat hunting and incident response, which naturally brings more efficiency to the process. So how can Kaspersky help organizations to implement this investigative approach? This year, Kaspersky is introducing our own framework to confront the increasingly pervasive problem of targeted threats. The platform's called Kaspersky Threat Management and Defense, or TMD. And while we can't claim this to be a silver bullet, TMD offers a comprehensive approach to threat mitigation, advanced threat mitigation. Kaspersky Anti-Targeted Attack helps you to identify suspicious activities in the very early stages of an attack. Kaspersky Endpoint Detection and Response provides full visibility over your network along with the response automation. And while these tools provide you with full visibility of what's happening inside your environment, our threat intelligence services deliver visibility into what's happening on the outside, or put another way, from the attacker's perspective. This allows you to prepare prior to an attack hitting your perimeter. Moreover, as part of the Kaspersky Cybersecurity services, we can also keep your internal personnel trained on the very latest techniques, or we can even augment or outsource the functions of threat hunting and incident response activities from our in-house threat intelligence experts. With threat management and defense overall, we aim to bring a revolution in the way that security teams get in control of complicated threats at each stage of the threat management lifecycle. And to help validate the value of this overall approach, let's step you through some real use cases. So let's begin with the detection use case, and we'll describe one of the real cases that our global research team actually worked on. So imagine you're a bank that encountered an incident where cyber criminals were cashing out your ATMs. And while your security personnel were responding to that particular problem, cyber criminals behind the scenes managed to go deep into your bank's network and started actually stealing money from your customer accounts. The net is that in the absence of an advanced threat detection tool, your security team only detected part of the attack and not the deeper, more complicated operation in its entirety. With Kaspersky Anti-Targeted Attack, you can detect the entire attack by correlating and analyzing the malicious patterns happening well under the surface of what might seem to be a simpler, more obvious activity going on in other parts of the network. Moving to the response use case. Here's a second scenario based on true events. So ransomware spiked in one of your company's locations. Some of the data was encrypted, but nothing serious. Case closed. Several months later, you experience another pretty serious ransomware attack. But what actually happened? Your investigation reveals that all the forensic details were destroyed by the ransomware attack, staged by criminals behind this to hide their tracks. With Kaspersky Endpoint Detection and Response, we collect all the needed data for forensics from all of your endpoints and store them in a safe repository. Ultimately, it does not matter if attackers destroyed the data or if the affected workstations and servers are no longer available. You will be able to retrieve that data from the repository and perform a full investigation. Moreover, due to the incident response automation capabilities in the solution, your teams can react faster and more efficiently without extra manual work. Now to our cybersecurity services use case and another real-life story. You're a business process outsourcing company, and an application installed on a call center machine begins to communicate with an unrecognized domain when it shouldn't. Your security analyst sees the communication as unwanted, but not necessarily bad activity, and decides to block it without further investigation. A few months later, you learn that private files were stolen from a top manager's computer for ransom, and that the data theft happened through communication with another random domain. So shortly thereafter, your security team discovers that both domains were connected and that they were known to be used in such attacks. With the right threat intelligence source, your team could have learned about this threat when they initially discovered the quote-unquote unwanted communication from the call center machine in the first place. How do you ever know if a truly serious threat comes your way? This is a good example where our cybersecurity services could make a big impact. When your team needs up-to-date information on cyber attacks based on our world-class threat intelligence. But there's more that we can do. If you want to involve external help in your fight against advanced threats, from targeted attack discovery to incident response services, you can rely on Kaspersky's 20 years of experience in cybersecurity to either augment or outsource that function. Finally, let's step you through another real-world use case that illustrates the combined benefits of the threat management and defense offering. In a bank, a sharp-eyed IT administrator accidentally notices massive suspicious outgoing traffic from one of the PCs in a branch office. In most cases, IT administrators wouldn't look closely at traffic like that or care to check, but this is exactly the kind of anomaly that Kaspersky Anti-Targeted Attack would detect automatically. In this case, that bank called us because they thought someone was leaking data from the inside out. After some analysis, our experts discovered that this wasn't the work of an insider. Instead, the computer was accessed from outside of the network through PSExec, or a legitimate tool for remote control. So in order to understand where the hack came from and why, our experts would normally have to go to the branch office itself and take a look at the logs of the endpoint that was hacked. However, with Kaspersky EDR, this could be done remotely and much more quickly. Ultimately, this case was solved because our experts knew that legitimate software like PSExec is sometimes used by hackers. And this is the value of threat intelligence. How many people in the industry know of PSExec usage in attacks just like this? How many would pick up on a non-malicious object that has a clean verdict after running it through something like VirusTotal? So in this example, each component of threat management and defense would have contributed to a successful mitigation. Our anti-targeted attack solution would have detected the anomaly in the first place. EDR would have helped with remote incident response, and our expertise through cybersecurity services allowed us to know where to look for the attack's root cause. With Kaspersky's threat management and defense platform, your security team will always have answers to the most difficult questions. By getting in control of the cybersecurity agenda, they will evolve from merely engineers drowning in manual task overload into well-informed, well-equipped security analysts.
Great, thanks so much, Rob. So everyone, we are now going to begin our Q&A portion of the webinar. And for this portion, Ori Amar, our Senior Director of Enterprise Pre-Sales, is going to join us. So just as a reminder, you can enter any questions you have into the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. All right, so we do have a couple questions that have come in already. So Rob, I think probably this one is going to be for you. So first question is, which companies can benefit from Kaspersky Threat Management and Defense?
Okay, thanks for the question. You know, as mentioned in one of the slides today, where we were talking about big breaches on some of the famous logos there, it can be a very large organization with a high level of security maturity that just encounters a very sophisticated, highly capitalized threat that was created from scratch and designed to target an individual, you know, that specific company, or even the industry. On the other hand, we find that anyone that has valuable data that someone wants to get their hand on, that they can monetize on a fairly substantial basis, they could be targeted too. It could be a small size organization, could be a small bank, could be a mid-sized organization. And you know, we also find that the degree of security maturity and the ability to build out a security operations center, have a threat intelligence team, varies across the board, and it doesn't always correlate directly to the size of an organization. And so in those scenarios, if you are concerned with potentially being targeted by any number of these advanced or sophisticated threats, and whether you have that in-house expertise and you're looking to augment it through solutions that can help you better detect the threats earlier in the process, or if you need help with that in addition to analyzing the information that comes out of the solution, in addition to being able to respond to that threat, and then to take it even a step further to start doing proactive threat hunting, TMD is a valuable solution in that it gives you the products for heightened sensitivity, but we can also augment the manually intensive part, the part that does require the human element to go ahead and analyze things and to respond if you can't already do it automatically with something like our EDR offering. So, you know, I would say it definitely applies to a multitude of organizations. The common thread is you have a concern with being targeted by a sophisticated kind of threat because they're after your valuable information.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. All right, so next question up. I think this one probably can go over to Ori, but I'll let you guys fight out who wants to answer it. Is Kaspersky EDR compatible with competitors' solutions?
Hi, Rob. I think I can handle that. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Ori Amar. I'm the head of enterprise pre-sales, as I was just recently introduced. So the solution is compatible, and this also ties in to the previous question. I'll break it into technical details, the aspect of maturity. A common misconception is that EDR can come in lieu of prevention, and that is simply incorrect. Most organizations will face reused tools, techniques, and procedures, or just randomly targeted, or an employee clicking something they shouldn't, and so on. And it is less likely that these organizations would be subject to a targeted attack. So first and foremost, on the maturity, invest in prevention. This would take care of 70, 80, sometimes 90% of threats out there in a fully automated manner. Once you have all the components of a robust prevention, and it could be perimeter, it could be endpoint, could be web application security and whatnot, or you have identified an excessive risk of targeted attacks, you can then deploy our EDR solution, part of the Kaspersky Threat Management and Detection, on top of your existing endpoint tools, or utilize the CATA, the anti-targeted attack component, which is network-based. So there's no risk of incompatibility between either the EDR, which is host-based, and Kata, which is network-based.
Awesome. Thanks, Ori. All right. Next question up. Will there be any discount programs available to customers who have acquired previous generations of Kaspersky Anti-Targeted Attack platform? Rob, maybe a good one for you.
Okay, so sounds like that would be for an existing customer inquiring about having Kata already, and they're wondering would they receive a discount for adding the additional layers or additional components of TMD. So the answer to that would be, as part of your Kata subscription, you're entitled to updates and upgrades of that platform as part of your subscription already. If you were then to go ahead and consider the EDR component and any of the services together, yes, there would definitely be a discount in the form of a bundle, depending on what would make sense for your business scenario that you're trying to solve for, whether you do require services for threat intel purposes, or if you need to outsource any of those functions that we mentioned around analysis, incident response, or even threat hunting. But yes, if you were to license a combination of the components, there would be a level of discount available to you.
Okay, great. Next question up is, where is Kaspersky Threat Management and Defense available?
I'll take that, Ori. It's available globally in every region. So I think that's a fairly simple one. It's available now. So to anyone who's interested in investigating further, wants to see a demonstration of any of the components, or wants to even begin a proof of value, proof of concept, we can make that available today. So it's available everywhere, and it's available now.
Perfect. Okay, and last question that we've gotten in, and maybe another good one for Ori. What are your plans for Kaspersky Threat Management and Defense solution development?
All right, so I'll give the short answer, and obviously there's a bunch of resources available on our website for further information for those who would like it. So like we said, the KTMD, or Threat Management and Defense, is a solution. It keeps evolving rapidly because it's not just the products. Products have a roadmap, features being added, but more importantly, it's based on our top-notch research. We analyze more than 360,000 unique malware samples a day, and we also track all the well-known and some of the lesser-known threat actors out there, mostly nation-states, cyber crime rings, and so on. And these, or the analysis of the TTP, the tools, techniques, and procedures, make it to the product and the accompanying solutions. Again, it's not only about the products themselves. So there's always ongoing development. There's behavior-based analysis. There's what we call the targeted attack analyzer at the heart of the solution that identifies any sign of a targeted attack, because these ultimately result in a lengthy dwell time. So the best detection, or the better detection, will always lead to a better response. You could perform most of the hunting yourself manually if you had an unlimited amount of skilled personnel, which is always an issue for companies. So the products help automate the detection and response part. But a critical element, as we've said, is the research that powers the products and all the accompanying services that we can work with in-house teams to either empower or outsource capabilities for threat monitoring and also threat hunting. So the bottom line, better detection, and better would mean more accurate, more rapid, and first and foremost, automatic detection would always lead to a much better response.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, well, that is all that we had in for questions, but Ori, I know that you just joined us, so any closing thoughts from your end?
No, I added that to the end of the question. Again, better detection will always lead to a better response, and having the right mix of products and services would lead to a better, more accurate, rapid, and somewhat automatic detection, which would facilitate a more rapid response, reducing the dwell time of an adversary on your network or hosts.
Great. Well, thank you both for contributing on today's webinar, and for everyone else, this is going to conclude our presentation. So again, all attendees will receive a recording link to this session, and we thank you very much for your attendance and look forward to having you join us again on future webinars. Thanks, everyone.